midday sun beat down mercilessly on my back as I adjusted the straps of my heavy pack. Sweat trickled down my temples, stinging my eyes. Beside me, Amelia, my ever-optimistic girlfriend, whistled a jaunty tune, completely unfazed by the relentless Alaskan heat. We stood at the foot of a particularly daunting section of the trail, a near vertical incline of loose scree that seemed to disappear into the clouds. "Ready for this, love?" I asked, my voice hoarse from the thin mountain air. Amelia grinned, her dark eyes sparkling. "Born ready," she declared, hefting her pack onto her shoulders with surprising ease. We had been on the trail for 3 weeks, traversing the breathtaking Alaskan wilderness. Our destination, a hidden glacier lake marked on an old trapper's map Amelia had unearthed in a dusty antique shop back in Seattle. The map, aged and brittle, promised a place of untouched beauty, a turquoise jewel nestled amidst the jagged peaks. Fueled by a shared love of adventure and a thirst for the unknown, we had embarked on this arduous journey. The initial days had been idyllic. Crisp mornings spent hiking through fragrant pine forests, sun-drenched meadows bursting with wildflowers, and nights huddled together under a canopy of 1,000,000 stars. It was everything we had dreamt of and more. But the past few days had been different. The air had grown heavy. The once vibrant landscape now seemed shrouded in an oppressive silence. The playful chirping of birds had been replaced by an unsettling quiet. Even the playful squirrels we'd encountered earlier seemed to have vanished. "Do you think this is a good idea?" I found myself asking, a sliver of doubt creeping into my voice. Amelia tilted her head, studying the treacherous path ahead. "We've come so far, John. We can't give up now, can we?" I couldn't argue with that. We had come too far to turn back now. With a deep breath, I shouldered my pack and stepped onto the loose scree. The climb was slow and arduous. Each step sent a cascade of pebbles tumbling down the slope, echoing eerily in the stillness. As we ascended, the temperature dropped dramatically. The harsh sunlight was replaced by a thick fog that rolled in from the valley below, swallowing the once clear path in a veil of white. Visibility dropped to a mere few feet. We navigated by touch, one hand reaching out in front of the other, feeling for the next precarious foothold. Suddenly, a gust of wind ripped through the fog, howling like a banshee. It whipped at our clothes, threatening to rip them from our bodies. Amelia stumbled, letting out a cry of alarm. I lunged for her, grabbing her arm just as she began to slide. "Hold on," I yelled, digging my boots into the scree. Together, we fought against the wind's fury. It was a desperate struggle, the wind relentless in its attack. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the wind subsided as abruptly as it had begun. We stood there, panting, hearts pounding in our chests. Through the thinning fog, I saw something that sent a jolt of fear through me. A dark shape loomed ahead, a massive rock formation that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had, and the fog had simply obscured it from view. "What is that?" Amelia whispered, her voice barely audible above the ringing in my ears. It was a gigantic stone archway, its weathered surface etched with strange symbols that seemed to writhe and pulsate in the fading light. An unnatural chill emanated from the arch, seeping into my bones. "We should turn back," I said, my voice tight with unease. But Amelia, ever the adventurer, took a step forward. "Let's just take a closer look," she urged. Against my better judgment, I followed her. As we drew closer to the arch, the symbols seemed to come alive, glowing with an eerie inner light. The air crackled with a strange energy, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed through the mountains, a voice that seemed to originate from the very stones beneath our feet. It spoke in a language I didn't understand, a guttural, primal sound that sent shivers down my spine. Amelia gasped, clutching my arm. Her eyes were wide with terror. The voice boomed again, closer this time, shaking the very ground beneath our feet. Panic surged through me. I grabbed Amelia's hand and pulled her back, a desperate need to escape this place taking hold of me. But it was too late. My heart hammered against my ribs as I dragged Amelia away from the pulsating archway. The ground trembled with each echo of the booming voice, a deep, primal sound that resonated with a chilling finality. We stumbled blindly through the fog, desperate to put as much distance between us and the arch as possible. The wind had picked up again, howling like a tormented beast. It snatched at our clothes, icy tendrils biting at our exposed skin. Visibility was near zero, the fog thick and impenetrable. We tripped and stumbled over unseen rocks, gasping for breath in the thin mountain air. "John," Amelia cried, her voice lost in the swirling white. "Where are we going?" "I don't know," I shouted back, fear a tight knot in my stomach. "Just keep moving." Time seemed to lose all meaning. Minutes bled into hours as we navigated the treacherous slope. Exhaustion gnawed at my limbs, my vision blurring. Just when I thought I couldn't take another step, the ground leveled out beneath my feet. With a gasp of relief, I sank down onto a large flat rock. Amelia collapsed beside me, her chest heaving. We sat there for what felt like an age, catching our breath, listening to the relentless wind howl its mournful song above us. Slowly, the fog began to dissipate, wispy tendrils drifting away on the wind. The first rays of a pale moon peeked through the tattered clouds, casting a ghostly light on the landscape. As my vision cleared, I felt a surge of renewed fear. We were no longer on the scree slope. Instead, we found ourselves in a vast, desolate valley. Towering black cliffs rose on either side, their jagged peaks scraping the underbelly of the storm clouds gathering overhead. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, broken only by the occasional screech of an unseen bird. A sense of dread settled over me, heavy and suffocating. I looked around, searching for any sign of the trail, of the familiar pines and meadows we had left behind just hours ago. But there was nothing. Only this desolate wasteland, and the chilling feeling that we were no longer alone. Amelia stirred beside me, her face pale in the moonlight. "John," she whispered, her voice barely audible. What happened?" I didn't know how to answer. The booming voice, the terrifying archway, it all seemed like a fever dream. But the memory was too vivid, too real to ignore. I don't know," I admitted, my voice cracking. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the valley for a brief moment, revealing a network of dark, winding paths weaving between the base of the cliffs. The paths seemed to pulsate with an unnatural light, beckoning us closer. A primal instinct to flee pulsed through me. But where were we to go? We were lost, trapped in this desolate place. Amelia seemed to have come to the same conclusion. "We have to find shelter," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Before the storm hits." The storm was indeed upon us. The first fat raindrops began to fall, splattering on the cold stone. In the distance, a low rumble echoed across the valley, a promise of the fury to come. With a shared look of grim determination, we rose from the rock and limped towards the network of paths. We had no choice but to follow them, hoping desperately that they would lead us to safety. As we entered the darkness between the cliffs, a chilling sensation washed over me. It felt as though unseen eyes were watching us, malevolent eyes that gleamed with ancient malice. The feeling intensified with each step we took, an icy hand squeezing my heart. The path we followed dipped down into a narrow cleft in the rock. The air here was thick and fetid, smelling of damp earth and decay. The sound of dripping water echoed eerily in the darkness. Suddenly, the path ended abruptly. We stood at the edge of a gaping chasm, a bottomless pit that swallowed the moonlight whole. A cold wind blew from the depths, carrying with it the faint scent of sulfur and something else, something utterly horrifying. Frozen in terror, I stared into the abyss. A single horrifying thought screamed through my mind. This wasn't a storm we were fleeing. We had stumbled upon something far more ancient, far more evil. Panic clawed at my throat. We were trapped, cornered by the chasm and the encroaching storm. Just as despair threatened to consume me, Amelia grabbed my arm, her touch a grounding force. "John," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "Look, She pointed to a narrow ledge jutting out from the opposite wall of the chasm, barely visible in the dim light. It was a precarious climb, but it might be our only hope. Without hesitation, I reached into my pack, pulling out the sturdy rope we had brought for emergencies. With trembling hands, I secured one end to a sturdy rock outcropping and began to unravel the rest. "Can you make it?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Amelia nodded, her face grim. "I have to," I watched, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm as she expertly navigated the treacherous climb. The wind howled, threatening to tear her from the ledge. But she persevered, fueled by the same desperate need for survival that coursed through me. Finally, she reached the other side and secured the rope to a similar outcrop. Pulling myself up, the raw rock scraped against my skin, but I ignored the pain. Reaching the top, I helped Amelia onto solid ground. We huddled together, panting, against the cold rock face. The storm raged outside the chasm, a cacophony of wind, rain, and thunder. We were safe for now, but the feeling of dread persisted. "What was that place?" Amelia whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm's fury. I shook my head, unable to voice the horrifying possibilities that swirled in my mind. Just then, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the chasm. For a split second, I glimpsed something clinging to the rock face below, a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes that stared back at us with a chilling hunger. The image vanished as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the darkness. But it was enough. We weren't alone in this desolate valley. We had stumbled upon something ancient, something malevolent, and it was far from finished with us. As the storm battered the cliffs above, we huddled together, the rope our only lifeline. We knew then that our fight for survival had just begun. The journey to the glacier lake had become a distant dream, replaced by a terrifying new reality. The storm outside might have been fierce, but the storm within, the terror and uncertainty, was far worse.